Thank you, Kate. And welcome everyone, really, to this really special event, a special event here at YuLife for us as we're launching our new proposition into the market. And it's a real pleasure for us to be doing it here with you, Ella. It's really wonderful to work with you as part of, you've joined YuLife as one of our Wellbeing ambassadors. So we're really honoured and excited to work with you.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. It's so nice having you all here today. So yeah, really appreciate you coming down as well.
Great. So really, the format really today is just to have a very light conversation really about well-being and then just to have a conversation, then to open it up to questions. And so really that's what we're going to do. So I really want to just kick off by really talking, I suppose, about vision. Kate just talked about the vision. I mean, we at YuLife, we have a big vision is to really about love being you and to help people celebrate themselves really and being you. And I know that you, when you founded Deliciously Ella, you have a vision. And maybe you can just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very, like you guys, very passionate about vision and about having a sense of why. And I think having that sense of purpose is really powerful, actually, for your health as well. Our vision was accidental, to be completely honest. It is not anymore, just to clarify. But I was actually never interested in healthy food at all. I didn't really like cooking, if I'm honest. And then when I was at university in 2011, I got very unwell, and very, very long story, but I spent about 4 months in and out of hospital. I was 21 and I was diagnosed with a condition that affected the workings of my autonomic nervous system, so I couldn't control my heart rate properly, blood pressure, digestion, circulation. I had chronic fatigue. I had secondary issues, which meant I was allergic to lots of things that I wasn't allergic to. I spent 2.5 years on antibiotics. I had 2 antibiotic drips. I was very sick, and I spent about a year in bed, and I was taking steroids and all kinds of different medicines, and they didn't really work for me. And at the end of that year, I hit a real rock bottom with my well-being, my mental health, as well as my physical health. And I realized at that point that I needed to see what I could do to help myself. So at this point, healthy eating wasn't what it is now. It was still quite niche. It was still a bit weird. But I wanted to see if it would help me. So I started researching, learning as much as I could about nutrition, the human body, and starting to understand the importance of eating so many of the foods that I wasn't eating. You know, starting to understand why people want you to eat your 5 a day, why people want you to eat your 30 grams of fiber, and all the things that actually most of us in the UK aren't doing. Only 27% of the UK eat their 5 a day. We're meant to get about 30 grams of fiber. We're averaging between like 17 and 19 grams. So we're a long way off. And I was definitely in that camp. And so I set myself this mission to see, would it help if I changed the way I ate and started to change my lifestyle and look after myself and kind of nourish my body? And could I do that in a way that would help my mental health and tap into that sense of purpose? And in that, I decided what I would do is I would do it as a project, and I would do it as a blog. So I would learn food photography and that whole kind of online news space of communicating. And overnight, Deliciously Ella was born, and I was on a mission. At that point, it was a really personal mission to change my own preconceptions around healthy eating and healthy living and make it something appealing, make it something exciting. Ultimately, I'm the biggest believer in anything being sustainable. It's got to be enjoyable. It's got to be something you actually want to do for the rest of your life. It can't be something that feels bland or restrictive or diety. And so that really was the early mission. And as I started doing it, I fell completely in love with it. I realized all these negative preconceptions I had around healthy eating, and that it was all kind of rabbit food and like I'd be eating grated carrot forever, actually turned out not to be true. And we don't need to eat any grated carrot if we don't want to. And although you can make that delicious even. And Deliciously Ella was born, and in that started to form this community of like-minded people who were equally passionate about this space, and that's really what kind of propelled us forward, and we've grown from that point. And in terms of mission, the mission has therefore transferred from my own personal mission to look after my health to sharing that with anyone and everyone who will listen and wants anything to do with us, and trying to, again, I mean, we always say our why, our mission is to make vegetables cool, and we really want to change the way that people look at healthy eating, and that's why we're excited to be working with you guys, because healthy eating is healthy living, and these things tie so closely in together, and it has to be fun, it has to be easy, it has to be doable, it has to be accessible, and that's what we're so passionate about, and obviously that's what you guys are so passionate about.
Great, thank you. And one of the things that I know I'm really inspired by, because you talk about plant-based diets and vegetables, but you also talk about this idea of it doesn't have to be restrictive. It doesn't have to be, this earnest way of being healthy, and it has to be very serious. And you you make it a celebration in a way, that cooking and food and eating can be enjoyable.
I mean, I think that's key for that exact reason of sustainability. Like, if we're going to be doing something on a regular basis, and however you want to eat, however you want to look after yourself, and there is no one size fits all, and you've got to work for you. We all know we're meant to be eating our 5 a day, hopefully our 10 a day. We're trying to go in that direction. Like I always say to people, if you went onto the street and you went to kind of a 12-year-old and you said, is pizza cool? They'd say, yeah, of course. And then you say, are lentils cool? They'd be like, what? No. No one thinks lentils are cool. I don't even know if I think lentils are cool. And that's what I'm kind of really excited to change. But to do that, it's got to be cool. We've got to make it exciting.
Yes.
It's got to be beautiful. It's got to be abundant. It's got to be something you look at, you see, you hear about, and you're like, yes, I want that.
Yes.
It can't be that kind of really pious, stripped back, like sort of, where you're feeling exactly like, because that lasts 3 days, if you can last 3 days, you're amazing. But I think, humans are so set, you're so kind of functioned, I think, for joy, for celebration, for trying to have a good time, and ultimately, our lifestyles are such a key part to how we feel, and so they have to make us happy. And if what you're doing is making you unhappy, that's not good for your health either. And that's for me why it's all about flavor. I think that's why social media has played a really key part in it, because it's an amazing way of just, we just take pictures of food, hopefully looking bright, beautiful, abundant, and talk about all the flavors, all the spices. It's not, did you know this is good for you because of X, Y, or Z, because ultimately that, I think, makes us step away from it. It's just got to be that easy to access little kind of nuggets that make you excited. And I think that's absolutely key.
How have you seen sort of over the years that you've been going with Deliciously Ella, how have you seen sort of the trends around well-being, especially related to food? How have you seen it evolve over the past few years?
Yeah, it's been the most amazing transformation. So I started this in 2011, and when I decided I was going to follow a vegan diet, and I told my friends and my family, and they all just looked at me like, what? What will you eat? And they were so kind of confused by the concept. It felt so niche. It felt very weird, very different. I remember making a green smoothie and people being like, oh my goodness, it looks like you're drinking a swamp. And you fast forward, not even a decade, and now like you can get a green smoothie everywhere. Pret has bought, I always think somewhere like that's a great barometer of it. They've bought green juice everywhere. Somewhere like Zzz's has vegan menu in capital letters outside it. Like, it's become so normalized, whereas back then people were like, goodness me, this is so strange. What's wrong with you? And so that's been really interesting. But I think one of the really positive things I think I've seen is I think we went from niche, strange, weird in a box, which wasn't great because, again, we weren't eating well because these things were very uncool. And then we went to this kind of explosion of healthy eating, which really coincided with the launch of our first book around 2015. And at that point, it became quite sensationalized, a little bit faddy. It was very superfood focused. It was like, if you have this one thing, it will save you. Beyonce was wearing kale jumpers. Like, if that's not making it cool, what is? And, so there was this kind of moment of explosion. And I think at that point, that sometimes became confusing as well. It felt like maybe it was all or nothing. It felt like you needed to be having these green powders, these complicated things. And I think yeah, it was actually quite trend focused, and I feel like we've navigated through that, and I think now we're at a place where you see more and more. There's 23 million flexitarians now in the UK, which is really astonishing, actually, of people who are deliberately, consciously trying to include more veg, more plants in their diet. That's so exciting, and I do think we're seeing this kind of advent of people starting to be interested in their health. I think we're starting to understand the importance of taking personal responsibility for our health, preventative health, and these things I think are becoming part of the norm and part of a kind of normal day-to-day life, rather than feeling like it's a diet, it's a fad, it's something that's kind of, I think, slowly embedding into our culture, which I think is really exciting.
So it's moving away from like sensationalist or what is special to something which is
to
just
normal.
Like, to normal. So like the
Normal's
everyday.
a great place to be, I think.
Normal's a great place to be. So do you see that's where things are sort of heading? If we look to the sort of going forward, you think it's more normal, like healthy diet becomes like a normal?
I think so, and I think but I think that's kind of synonymous with just a more conscious way of living. And I think you see that a lot in terms of people's interest in the environment, for example. All the press, especially around kind of last autumn time, where scientists are saying, we've got 12 years to stop climate breakdown, and then you're getting, interesting news about, food waste being the third bigger solution that we could have to stop that. A plant-rich diet being number 4, that compares to things like electric cars being right down about number 60. It's really interesting. I think people are starting to tap into this for all kinds of different reasons that are just kind of synonymous with a more conscious way of living, and I think that's the same with walking, with meditating. It's really interesting seeing the kind of normalization again of all the meditation apps. How commonplace that is at this point, to use Headspace, to use Calm, to use Insight Timer, whichever one it is that resonates with you. And I don't think, again, people don't think that's strange in the way that I think it was seen as, again, a bit funny beforehand.
Yeah, I'm interested from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Obviously, the mission and the vision became a business, and now you're running a business, and we've got the thriving deli episode. I'm just interested, maybe if you can share some of your experiences of what that's like to build a startup in a way around your mission, and maybe lessons you've learned.
Gosh, so many things. I mean, it's been fascinating. It's been amazing. I feel kind of lucky beyond lucky. I think, there is an element of right time, right place, and I think it's always important to acknowledge that. I want to be like, oh, it was all genius thinking. It wasn't. There's a lot of right time, right place in there. We started talking about healthy eating, about plant-based food, just as it was kind of bubbling up to the surface. And that's made a kind of phenomenal difference in what we do. Again, I started on social media in the kind of online space before it was commonplace, so our social media grew really quickly. We've got over 2.5 million followers across all our channels now. I mean, that has been kind of completely pivotal to the business and that sense of community. And I love that, because in the community you have that sense of mission, that sense of why, and I feel like that holds us really accountable to making sure we make the right decisions and that we kind of continue to live by our values in every single decision we make. That being said, I think it's, learning to juggle looking after yourself and your health when you're really busy is, something anyone can relate to. And I do think that's been a really good learning as well, is how challenging that is. And one of the things for me that really came out of that is how important your mindset and your mental health is, because I feel, and it's a bit cheesy, but to me, the biggest thing I've learned for success is resilience, because ultimately, you know what it's like, everyone knows what it's like if you're leading a team, if you're looking after a team of people, it's got to be you that says, okay, there's a solution. There is a solution to this problem. And sometimes it feels like the problem's bad, and sometimes it feels like the problem's literally insurmountable. And you've got to find a way to jump over that wall or knock that wall down. And the quicker you get to that, and the more kind of optimistic you can stay in the face of these issues, the better your solution finding is going to be. And I wasn't very good at that when we started, because I was so worried, I was so nervous, I was kind of quite insecure and doubting myself and my ability to make those decisions, and that's what I've really learned. And I think that sense of slightly naive optimism and ability to kind of continue to find that positive mindset and that ability to kind of try and see the bigger vision and the way through the problems comes down to your mind being in a good place. And I've really found that. And I find sometimes when you push and you push and you push and push and push some more, that's when you actually start making the bad decisions. And that's when you start kind of letting the kind of panic, the stress, the worry, the issues drive you in the wrong direction, rather than like staying really true and clear to what the original path is.
Yeah, love that. Thank you very much. That's very inspiring. Being calm, being a leader is also about just being calm. It doesn't have to be.
There's such a glorification of the stress, and
exactly.
you know, we've seen that a lot, and it's like the more stressed you are, the more successful you are. And like, that's not to say, like, we've been through a lot of stress. Like, I will admit to like sitting under the kitchen counter crying, and you know, there's been lots of issues that we've had, but it's realizing that the issues don't get better when you're more stressed.
Yes.
And so actually, like, you don't need to hold on to that as a badge of honor. Actually, like, you're going to be more successful if you're calm. Like, there's no way you can say you make a better decision when you're frazzled. Like, no one does. It's not possible.
Yes. That work ethic, you know, the idea of, oh, I've got 4 hours sleep and I'm so cool, you know, I'm working so hard and I never see I'm always working. I mean, that sort of ethic, I think we're seeing actually, hopefully we're introducing that you can actually be successful and have a life as well.
I think so. I think we're starting to understand that. And it's not like, we're definitely on 365 days a year, 7 days a week. Like, you know what that's, you know, you have that sense of responsibility, that sense of, you know, you need to be contactable, aware, understanding what's going on, able to kind of respond quickly. But you can still add in those little things to your life that keep that sense of balance, that sense of calm. And I think that's what I hope we're going towards. But I think knowledge is information, isn't it? And you know, that's one of the things. I know social media sometimes gets a bad rep, but one of the things I'm really passionate about with social media, and I think podcasts are a really interesting medium for that especially, is the amount of information we can consume now. And like, we can now, you know, learn so much more about why stress is actually really bad for our bodies, and like how it actually has a physical impact. We can learn why actually having those 4 hours of sleep is actually really counterproductive, why it's actually not going to make you better at what you do, why the 10,000 steps or 30 minutes of exercise is actually really important. And I think when I'm a massive believer in that sense of mission, that sense of why, when you know why you're doing something or why it matters, you want to do it.
Yes.
When someone just says to you, eat your vegetables, well, why? Like, what's the point? You don't like them. Don't want them. Or, you know, go for a walk, why? You know, and I think the more you understand why you're doing it, the more you want to do it. And so the more information we have access to, the more powerful I think that is to drive us to kind of be our better selves and feel better in ourselves.
Absolutely. I was listening to a podcast you did a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Chatterjee.
Yeah.
It's a great podcast.
He's amazing.
He's amazing. So we're very fortunate at YuLife for Dr. Chatterjee as well to be our Chief Wellbeing Officer. And so working with you to sort of really create sort of this well-being strategy for YuLife. And I think Dr. Chatterjee and you had a great conversation about that.
Yeah, so he's written a book all about stress, and he came on to talk about it. And it was, I mean, Matt, who's my husband and my business partner, he left and we were both like, we love him.
we feel the same way.
Yeah, he is a really special, I think he's a really special person, but he was so wise, so brilliant at distilling the information. And as I said, I think it's really powerful to understand, you know, why and how stress can actually affect so many different aspects, you know, things like libido that no one wants to talk about, but it's so interesting hearing about that, anxiety, obviously sleep, like all kinds of different things. And it was really, really interesting.
One of the things we're looking at YuLife is we're looking at the workplace. We're working with businesses, and businesses are purchasing YuLife to really encourage, obviously to protect all their employees for life insurance, but also to encourage them and to create a well-being framework and a really simple way to incentivize healthier lifestyles. I was reading your book last night, and I was looking at some of the things that you were saying for people, let's say for people in the workplace who have busy lives, and you had some tips you were talking about. Let's say maybe you can do like cooking at the start of the week, like a batch cooking. Yeah. Just interested in terms of your ideas, looking at the workplace, how do you think we can create this more consciousness in terms of, you know, healthier eating for a busy working person, for somebody, you know, at work?
Well, I think it taps into what we were saying earlier, in the fact that I think you've got to remove this idea that like eating well or living a healthy life is this sense of perfection. You know, you don't need to be like a kind of very pious person. You don't need to get everything right. There is no such thing as right. It is just doing those little things. I'm like, love the word more, because it's just like doing a little bit more. It's not about doing everything. It's just what you can and a bit more. And so I think there are a lot of easy little things that you can do to get that sense, and hopefully those will all add up over time to make you feel a little bit better. I think when it comes to food, you know, I'm like the biggest believer in this, like cooking once and eating, you know, up to 5 times from it. You know, there's so many easy things that you can make, say like 5-bean chili, for example. You know, all you need to do is literally chop celery, garlic, onion. You can even buy frozen, ready cut celery, garlic, onion if you're really, you know, lazy or short on time. And and don't worry, I do that a lot as well, so no judgment. And then you saute that with some herbs, some spices. You add some tinned beans, some tinned tomatoes, some tomato puree, splash of maple, bit of fresh chili, and you let it simmer for like 40 minutes. So all you have to do is put a lid on a pan, stir it once or twice, but it's because all you need to do is really just chop those garlic, celery, onions, you know, measure out a couple of teaspoons of spices and things like that, and open a few tins. It's just as easy to make a massive portion as it is to make 2 portions. So make a big portion, have it one night with brown rice and guacamole, coriander, and then, you know, have it a couple of nights later in a jacket potato or something like that, and then freeze the rest. And you can have the rest, you know, a couple of weeks later, and it will just be ready for you. And all you'd have to do on the jacket potato night is put a potato in the oven, in the microwave. I mean, it's like, it's so easy.
So it's easy.
And so, or, you know, you could take it into work and just, you know, put a few fresh bits with it in the morning, do some avocado, whatever it is. But so there's lots of kind of simple things you can do like that. Same, like, if you're roasting some veg for Sunday lunch, just roast more. It's so easy to just roast more. And then you can just throw those into a salad or something for your lunch the next day. So I do think it's just about like, what am I doing now? I can spend the extra 2 minutes doing it, and then that would make my life infinitely easier tomorrow. And that's the same in terms of like, you know, I don't think anyone's expecting you to get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and like have an hour of silent meditation, but you could even just like on your commute in, listen to something that's calming, you know, whether that's an app, you know, Calm have like the walking meditations, for example. Like, could you just get off one stop early and just listen to a walking meditation for 15 minutes, and it just gets you into that calm space.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what, for me, is the kind of key to keeping sane, is just those tiny little bits, and I think throughout the day they really add up.
Yeah, beautiful. So we're coming just towards the end of this sort of interview as such. I suppose I saw on Instagram, I just wanted to mention, if it's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Just to congratulate you.
Oh, thank you very much.
On you're expecting a child.
We are.
And we're really happy. And I saw on Instagram today, I think about 250,000 other people.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm fortunate, maybe for publicly, maybe the first public forum to actually, you know, congratulate you.
Thank
But,
you.
can I just ask you how you feel about that? How you feel?
Yeah, we're so excited, honestly. Like, it's a kind of overwhelming and crazy experience, but we're super excited. And I mean, I feel really lucky to do what we do, to be able to be a bit flexible in my working. But again, I feel like more than ever I'm conscious about just including those little bits in my life to kind of try and stay as calm and healthy as possible.
Great. Well, I want to thank you.
No,
for this
thank you guys.
conversation. And please let us give a round of applause.